Mistakes in construction are far from rare, and even in large-scale projects, fatal miscalculations sometimes occur. Then everything has to be fixed or demolished. Are you ready to watch mega budgets, super ambitions, and gigantic amounts of work collapse? Right now, we will show you a selection of unsuccessful construction structures that were doomed. Enjoy watching. It seems that the renovation of the office building after the fire brought it into an even more pitiful condition. The workers did not make sure that it is not enough just to pour in concrete. You have to make sure that it will stay where it is supposed to. Leaving your car on a city street is the same as playing the lottery. You never know what may happen overnight. The harsh Russian tradition of refreshing a new purchase looks approximately like this. Risk must be in these guys' blood if they parked a brand new Toyota Camry here right in the middle of construction. The task turned out to be a failure. They did not manage to rescue the vehicle, and on top of that, the wall collapsed. The excavator pushed the concrete mixer, but unsuccessfully. Instead of the mixer separating from the wall separated from its support. He simply did not take into account that the vehicle would be heavier and the fence thinner. When you plan to nudge one piece of wall slightly, for some reason, the other sides hitch themselves to it as well. Maybe the excavator hit too hard, or the walls were holding on to each other like the Musketeer friends in Alexandre Dumas's novel. A major incident in China showed what damage of $500,000 means. The wall of an abandoned factory collapsed and damaged 17 cars, among which there was a luxurious Rolls-Royce. The car belonged to a company that rents out vehicles. The parking lot was located right on the territory of the former factory. It is strange that the company's property, worth such an astronomical amount, was not even insured. This high-rise, after a court decision ordering its demolition, withstood 2 attempts to bring it down that did not succeed. Only on the 3rd try was it possible to level the building with the ground. Let us see how unpredictable the work of demolishing heavy structures can be. Regardless of how carefully everything was planned, many new things can happen in the process. As a result of this demolition, someone lost a residential house that folded up like a sheet of paper under the weight of something no longer needed. The calculations of the Texan engineers for the demolition of a building in Dallas failed. Part of the structure remained standing after the explosion. Now the company will have to pay again for the next stage. One wrong move entails large-scale consequences. When demolishing a house in North Carolina, instead of clearing the space, an even bigger mess arose. Moreover, in order to free the crane from under the debris and finish the job, the help of several bulldozers was required. When demolishing buildings, unforeseen destructions where something falls in the wrong place do not always happen. Sometimes the opposite occurs. There is enough explosives for the entire city, but the structure remains intact, as if mocking everyone. Chimneys are capricious structures, and even engineers cannot guarantee that at the very last moment during demolition they will fall exactly where planned. Yet another odd fellow, for some reason, parked his vehicle in the immediate vicinity of the demolition site. Apparently, the chimney was drawn to fall precisely on the car. But since a countdown had been given, the chimney decided to take the opposite direction. It fell completely not where the crew had expected. There was no cheerful blast, because the broken wires will have to be repaired for a long time, and the situation turned out to be unsafe. Only. The last corner remained of the old building, and not wanting to sink into oblivion, it, in revenge, caught the power lines as it fell. Instead of falling straight as planned, the tower decided to show character. You could say it turned around to crash in a different direction from the expected one. Naturally, in this way, it inflicted much more damage. You can feel the tension of that moment, even after time. On the 6th of April 2018, the residents of the town of Vordingborg in Denmark were filming the fall of a massive silo tower. They were expecting spectacular footage, but something went wrong. It is not that the recording turned out uninteresting, it made quite an impression. But the stubborn tower refused to fall in the planned direction and collapsed onto the library building, taking part of it with it on its final journey. A cooling tower, or draft tower, serves to cool a large amount of water with the help of a directed flow of atmospheric air. Let us watch how this structure that has served its time itself goes up into the air and falls down with noise and dust. When a new overpass has been built, the old one has to be professionally dismantled. Let us admire that. The demolition of an old bridge almost turned into a tragedy. Now the excavator operator knows that the structure he is working under can at any moment collapse onto his roof. When building a bridge over railway tracks, the crane misjudged its strength. A section of the steel structure turned out to be too heavy. It was not even possible to hold it suspended, let alone set it in place. In the Indian state of Bihar, builders could not manage to set up a bridge across the Ganges. The structures under construction collapsed completely twice. In June 2023, when a 200-meter section of the unfinished bridge collapsed, experts named weakened cables and poor quality materials as the cause of the destruction. Shortly before the second collapse in June 2024, the bridge structure had been badly battered by a storm and was fixed insufficiently firmly, which is why it collapsed entirely. If something repeats itself, it only means the same vicious circle of mistakes, do you not think? It is interesting how people will feel about this bridge if it is ever built and stands up to endless corruption and bungling on the construction site. Now, a story from Russia. On the 26th of October 2025 in Chita, an automobile bridge collapsed. The authorities showed vigilance and closed traffic over the bridge in advance with barrier blocks. This video demonstrates that at the moment when the support undercut by water had already begun to crumble, there was no traffic on the bridge. At night, on the 11th of September 2024, a large section of the Karola Bridge in Dresden collapsed into the river Elbe. Built at the end of the 19th century, the bridge was the city's most important transport artery. Part of the riverbank was flooded and the heat supply was disrupted. But the main thing is that at that hour, by some miracle, there was no one on the bridge or under it. On the 3rd of August 2015, in the town of Alphen aan den Rijn in the south of the Netherlands, 2 construction cranes that had been installed at the site of bridge repairs collapsed directly next to residential houses and shops. Shocked residents watched the scene, unable to move. The cranes looked so enormous compared to the neat buildings. By a happy coincidence, no one was injured in this incident. On the 8th of July 2020, in the London district of Bow, a construction crane about 20 meters high collapsed onto residential buildings. At the collapse site, firefighters and rescuers were working to help the victims and ensure the safety of the area. In a port, there is usually a heap of structures, and when a crane suddenly goes off the rails and falls, destruction is inevitable. The main thing is that dismantling all this is very difficult. And now a crane simply falls with a terrible noise. The defeated giant now takes up a lot of space on the ground. These guys were lucky enough to get away with only a fright. The structure outweighed the crane and pulled it down after itself. In such cases, luck depends on which direction the uncontrollable colossus will fall. The load turned out to be too bulky and heavy. The beam outweighed the crane, but it did not have time to turn it over completely. There was not enough space. Yet another classic situation. Let us watch how the advantage turns out to be on the side of the load and not the crane. The bulldozer pulled the loader after itself. It seems it will not be easy to get the mangled machinery out of the pit. On the 26th of July, 2023, on 10th Avenue in New York City, a construction crane caught fire and collapsed. The fire probably started when hydraulic fluid spilled onto hot metal. The crane operator tried to put out the flames, but his bravery was not crowned with success, and he had to evacuate. It is simply a miracle that no one was seriously injured as a result of such a large-scale incident. Here is what can happen when one of the most effective measures against landslides does not withstand the onslaught of natural forces. The ground begins to shift right during the installation of a retaining wall. It is painful to watch how long and hard work collapses in seconds before your eyes. It is likely that the very process of installation provoked the already unstable slope, and what was supposed to prevent the collapse only accelerated it. On the 8th of June 2019, in the Chinese city of Nanning, a dramatic incident occurred. Part of an expressway collapsed. Immediately before the fall, cracks began to creep along the road, foreshadowing imminent catastrophe. Fortunately, road workers noticed these changes in time and raised the alarm. They managed to evacuate all vehicles and machinery from there. A landslide hit Wyoming, destroying a significant section of highway in the area of the Teton Mountain Pass. Drone footage and aerial photography made it possible to assess the true scale of what happened. From above, you can clearly see the massive cracks and voids in the road, while the guardrail is left hanging in the air. In 2023 in Brazil, the rupture of a sewer pipe along the Orange Metro line in São Paulo led to the flooding of tunnels. The authorities were presented with two reports, one from the construction company and another from the Institute for Technological Research. The most interesting thing is that they contained different conclusions, but agreed on one point: fatal errors had been made during construction. The Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, famous for its contribution to the development of radio astronomy, suspended operations in December 2020 after its reflector dish with a diameter of 305 meters was destroyed. Just look at the enormous crack that appeared in it. In 2013 on Manhattan, a multi-story parking garage collapsed. Of course, the cars that were inside were destroyed, and those that were parked on the street were damaged, as were nearby structures. But not a single person was injured. You can talk as much as you like about safety standards, but sometimes what matters is simple luck. On the 12th of October 2019 in New Orleans, a loud event occurred that attracted a lot of attention. Right in the city center, during the construction of the 18-story Hard Rock Hotel, part of the structure collapsed. The investigation showed that gross errors had been made in the design or construction, and that safety regulations had not been observed during the work. So is it any wonder that this happened? In April 2024, the most powerful earthquake in the last 25 years hit Taiwan. The disaster, with a magnitude of 7.4, led to the destruction of many buildings, including the multi-story complex Uranus in the city of Hualien. From the strong tremors, the tower remained standing at an angle of 45 degrees, threatening to collapse at any moment. After the evacuation of people, the authorities began dismantling it, which in total took almost 2 weeks. Try prying out such a crooked tooth from the stone jaw of a street. In August 2014 in Canada, at the Mount Poly mine, an environmental disaster occurred. When a dam collapsed, about 10 million cubic meters of processed water gushed into the surrounding rivers and lakes. Worst of all was that the water contained industrial chemicals from the company Imperial Metals. The causes of the collapse turned out to be painfully banal. Experts determined that the dam did not have sufficient structural strength and that there had been miscalculations in its design. Even now, the consequences of this accident have not yet been fully eliminated. In February 2017, one of the largest technical accidents in the United States occurred at the Oroville Dam. Heavy rains led to an extreme rise in the water level in the lake, which created a critical load on the dam. The overflow of water through the emergency spillway led to its partial destruction. Cracks appeared everywhere. About 200,000 residents were evacuated because of the threat of flooding and complete destruction of the dam. And specialists had to deal with strengthening the structure, where numerous shortcomings were discovered. Since casualties were avoided, this accident became a vivid reminder of the need for regular inspections of such large facilities in order to prevent catastrophes. The Arts Pedregal Shopping and Entertainment Complex was built in Mexico City in 2017. Construction was completed in a short time, but was carried out in accordance with high-quality standards. Who could have thought that in July 2018, part of the building would suddenly collapse because of design defects? The incident occurred in the section that was still under construction, and fortunately, there were no casualties. Shortcomings were found in the design of the structure, as well as in the improper use of materials. The most important thing is that shortly before the collapse, all people were evacuated from the building. Let us look at it from two angles. In December 2020 in China, something happened that attracted the attention of the whole world. They showed the most effective way to deal with long-term unfinished construction projects. 15 unfinished buildings were demolished in 45 seconds. The fact was that the developer did not have a sufficient budget to complete construction, and the authorities made a radical decision. Despite the fact that to carry out this task, it was necessary to evacuate about 5,000 people and use almost 3 tons of explosives, everything went smoothly. Not a single nearby structure was damaged, and the quarter of new buildings collapsed like cut grass. That is how an unsuccessful construction project with an astronomical amount of losses ended. Demolition of large-scale buildings is always a challenge. Such structures are distinguished by special strength, which significantly complicates dismantling. Apparently, they were built to last for centuries. A steel frame was the basis of a 17-story residential building in Scotland, and its demolition became a historic engineering feat. The decision to demolish the building because of its advanced age and condition was made in 2011. About 100 kilograms of explosives were required for this. Thus, this building became the first in the country, and possibly in the world, steel-framed building to be demolished using a controlled explosion. That is not the noise of football fans. The stadium is giving its final show. It is being demolished with explosives, and this is no less thrilling. It is hard to describe what and how happened here. In one word, oops! Let us watch how a fire in a huge fuel tank grows into an explosion in seconds. Petroleum products are dangerous, and one should not forget this even at a filling station. It is hard to imagine what might have happened if the workers had not left the site in time. This is what it means to fold like a book. The structure became flat in an instant. The weak point of this structure turned out to be somewhere in the middle. First it sagged, and then it collapsed, as if it melted like plastic. The consequences of the collapse of the building are quite striking. They convey a truly post-apocalyptic atmosphere. Now you may think twice before parking your car under construction cranes or standing close to demolition sites. Write comments, give us likes, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Also check out our previous episodes. They are also very useful and incredibly interesting.